The desert has always hidden secrets, but some secrets should never be unearthed. For centuries, nomads who crossed the southern wastelands near ancient Babylon told stories of a place where the wind never sounded right, where compasses spun and animals refused to walk. They said the sand covered something alive, something cursed, something built by hands that should never have existed. Most dismissed the tales as superstition, but in 2025, science and greed overrode superstition. Dr. Marcus Hale was a man who had spent his career laughing at curses. He believed in artifacts, not phantoms, in ruins, not demons. But when he first set eyes on the satellite images, perfect ovals beneath the desert, unmistakably architectural, he felt the same thrill he felt when he was a boy paging through books about lost cities. It looked like an arena. Babylon's answer to Rome's coliseum, but buried, forgotten, waiting. A private American foundation had provided funding. They wanted discovery, headlines, prestige. Marcus wanted history. And history, he believed, was buried just beneath the sand. The team was small, but capable. Evelyn Cross, his assistant, fluent in dead languages and fiercely logical. Jonah and Rima, graduate students eager to prove themselves. Blake, a brash photographer whose jokes masked his nerves. 2 guards provided by the foundation, Cole and Ramirez, ex-military, both scarred by wars they didn't talk about. And finally, Hassan, their local guide, who had led archaeologists into ruins for years, but had begged not to take this job. The first night, camped on the dunes, Hassan muttered warnings over the fire. "This place is called the Quarter of Shadows," he said. His eyes shone with reflected flame. "It is where even the wind avoids. My grandfather told me. Men went down there in the old days, into the stone circle, and they did not come back. And those who did come back..." He crossed himself and spat into the sand. "They were not the same, their eyes were empty, their voices not their own." "Folklore," Marcus said lightly, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Every ruin has its ghosts." Evelyn frowned. "But not every ruin is avoided for 2,000 years. Hassan refused to speak further. He simply clutched his prayer beads and stared into the flames as though they alone could protect him. By dawn, the team was moving. The desert sun rose like a pale coin, but the heat was merciless. They shoveled sand, their tools striking something hard after only hours of labor. Stone, weathered, cracked, but unmistakably crafted. By midday, they revealed the top of a stairwell spiraling downward into the earth. The opening exhaled cold air, unnaturally cold for the desert heat. Hassan went pale. He backed away, shaking his head. "I told you, I will not go down there. I will wait at the surface. May God forgive you if you enter." Marcus, lantern in hand, gave a reassuring smile to the others. "Come on, history doesn't wait." The stairwell descended into darkness. The walls bore carvings, etched deep, still sharp despite millennia of sand. At first they were simple geometric shapes, but as they descended, the images grew clearer, more disturbing. Figures of men and women kneeling. Above them loomed shapes, formless, towering, shadow-like. Not gods with wings or crowns, not kings with spears, but voids. Shapes with no faces, only holes where eyes should have been. Evelyn traced one carving with trembling fingers. This isn't Akkadian. It isn't Neo-Babylonian. It doesn't match anything I know. It's older, cruder. But the intent is fear, Ramirez muttered. They reached the bottom. The stairwell opened into a vast underground chamber, so perfectly preserved it stole their breath. Rows of stone seats circled downward around a massive central pit, filled with black sand. At its center lay a massive circular slab, dark and stained, as if it had drunk the blood of centuries. No one spoke. The silence pressed heavy on them, broken only by the drip of unseen water. "This is..." Marcus's voice cracked. "This is the find of the century." "It feels like a tomb," Evelyn whispered. That night they camped in the arena itself. Lanterns glowed weakly, shadows stretching unnaturally far. Blake tested his camera. He developed a quick shot of the carvings. His laughter died when he saw the print. Look, he said, showing the others. The carvings appeared as expected, but behind them, faintly, were eyes. Dozens, maybe hundreds, glowing faintly from the stone. Jonah scoffed nervously. Light trick, double exposure. But Evelyn's face drained of color. No, that's not a trick. The whispers began soon after. Faint at first, like wind in the stone, but slowly forming cadence. Words in a language that grated against the ears, syllables sharp as knives. Hassan, waiting above, refused to descend. He clutched his beads, whispering prayers. Jonah, restless, wandered too close to the pit. The black sand shifted beneath his boots. He cried out as it swallowed him like water. Cole lunged, Ramirez close behind, but Jonah sank too fast. His screams echoed as he was dragged down, his fingers clawing furrows in the sand before he vanished completely. The pit went still, smooth, as though he had never existed. Evelyn screamed. Blake cursed. Rima sobbed. Marcus stood frozen, heart pounding. He wanted to say sinkhole, collapse, anything rational, but he had seen Jonah's arms flailing, his body pulled by something unseen. And he had seen, just before Jonah vanished, shapes moving beneath the sand, shadowy, elongated, watching. That night was endless. Lantern flames guttered as if smothered by invisible hands. Blake swore he saw figures sitting in the stone seats above, spectators, an audience of shadows. Evelyn whispered, "We shouldn't be here. This isn't a place for men. This is a place for them." At dawn, they tried to leave, but when Cole climbed the stairwell, he returned pale as death. The entrance is gone. It's sealed. Just stone. The world above had vanished. They were trapped, and the pit stirred again. Shadows moved within it, rising like smoke, whispering in 1,000 voices. Hunger filled the air, thick and suffocating. Marcus realized the truth then, with a clarity that froze his blood. This wasn't an arena for sport. It wasn't built for games. It was a prison, and the beasts it held were awake. The arena no longer slept. By the time Jonah was gone and the stairwell sealed, everyone understood they had stepped into something older than Babylon, older than gods, older than language itself. The stone seats loomed above them like an audience of unseen watchers. The pit in the center shifted constantly now, as if something beneath the black sand was stretching and breathing, waiting for the signal to rise. Marcus didn't sleep that night. None of them did. The whispers filled the dark, voices layered one upon another until it sounded like a crowd chanting. His name echoed in the noise, stretched, broken, Marcus, hissed by 1,000 tongues. Evelyn shook beside him, scribbling by lantern light, translating the crude carvings they'd found along the stairwell. Her hand never stopped moving, her lips whispering fragments. Sacrifice. Prison. Blood seals the gate. Blake paced, snapping pictures, then ripping them apart when the prints came out wrong. Shapes in the seats, faces where no one sat. Rima sat against the wall, knees hugged to her chest, rocking, whispering to herself. Ramirez kept his rifle aimed at the pit. Cole sharpened his knife in silence, jaw clenched. Hassan prayed until his voice was hoarse, his beads worn raw in his hand. The pit shifted again. Sand poured upward in a column, then collapsed. From within the collapse rose a figure. At first it looked like a man, tall, broad-shouldered. Cole's breath caught. "Jonah?" The figure stepped forward, but its head lolled too far to the side, its arms longer than they should have been, its skin gray and stretched. Its eyes were wrong, glowing faintly, like burning coals in a corpse's sockets. "Help me," it croaked. But the words came a beat too late, lips moving after the sound. Ramirez raised his rifle. "That's not him." The thing smiled. The jaw split wider than it should have, tearing flesh at the corners. It lunged. Gunfire cracked. The figure dissolved into shadow mid-step, then reformed behind them. Blake screamed as its hand, clawed, skeletal, tore across his shoulder, ripping flesh like paper. The lantern light dimmed to a sickly glow. Shadows bled across the sand, taking shape. 1, 2, 5, 10, dozens. Beasts of shifting forms, some hunched and spider-like, others tall and skeletal, their movements jerking, twitching, broken. Their faces were voids, but eyes flickered in and out, red, white, gold, blinking like fireflies inside the dark. The shadow beasts of Babylon had risen. Blake didn't make it long. He turned to run, but one beast moved faster than sight. Its arm split into tendrils, lashing around his body. He shrieked as his skin shriveled, his body collapsing inward like a husk drained of life. The beast dropped what was left of him, a dried-out shell, onto the sand. Rima wailed. Evelyn dragged her back, shouting, "Don't look at their eyes! Don't—" But Ramirez did. His gaze locked with the beast's flickering stare. His body went rigid, mouth open in a silent scream as shadows crawled into him, filling his eyes, his nose, his mouth. He convulsed, his own voice gone. A guttural whisper poured from his throat, not his words, but theirs. He turned his rifle on Cole. The shot went wide. Cole tackled him, screaming curses, stabbing with his knife until Ramirez fell still. Black liquid poured from the body, evaporating in smoke. Hassan stumbled forward, clutching his beads, voice breaking as he screamed ancient prayers. The beasts hissed, recoiling slightly, their forms rippling. The sound of prayer seemed to slow them, but only barely. "Stay close to him," Marcus shouted. They huddled in the circle of light around Hassan as the beasts circled like wolves. The arena shook, dust falling from the stone seats above. Evelyn's trembling voice rose over the noise. "I've translated more. It says blood opens the gate, but willing blood seals it. That's how they kept them in. A sacrifice. Someone has to choose." "No," Rima sobbed. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Evelyn screamed. "That's why this arena was built. It wasn't for sport. It was a ritual, a prison. The people offered themselves to keep the beasts trapped." The beasts pressed closer. One reached through the light, its arm dissolving under Hassan's prayers but reforming instantly. Time was running out. Cole's knife trembled in his hand. "Then someone's got to do it." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "It has to be willing. If you're forced, it won't work. That's what it says." The beasts howled, a chorus of hunger. The sound rattled the stones, shook the bones in their bodies. Marcus felt the air itself bending, ready to split. He looked at his team. Evelyn, terrified but unbroken. Rima, sobbing but clutching Evelyn's arm. Hassan, drained, still praying. Cole, beaten by war but refusing to yield. And himself, the man who had led them here. The guilt pressed like iron. Every decision had been his, every death on his hands. Jonah, Blake, Ramirez. If anyone had to bleed for this, it should be him. Marcus stepped toward the pit. "Stay back," Evelyn screamed. "No, Marcus, don't." But he was already moving. He walked into the sand, the whispers growing louder in his skull. The beasts froze, dozens of eyes fixing on him, hungry, curious. The altar in the center of the pit pulsed, as if waiting. Marcus climbed onto the black slab. The stone was cold, colder than death. He laid down his lantern and looked at the faces of his team one last time. Evelyn's sobs, Rima's cries, Hassan's prayers, Cole's shaking head. "This is my fault," Marcus said quietly, "so it ends with me." He drew Cole's knife across his palm. Blood dripped onto the slab. The whispers rose to a scream. The beasts surged, shrieking, their forms twisting in rage. Shadows lashed at him, clawed at him, but the altar drank his blood like water. Pain ripped through him, searing, as though every drop of life was being pulled out. His body convulsed, vision fracturing. But in that agony, he saw it. The beasts recoiling, shrieking, their bodies unraveling like smoke. One by one, they collapsed back into the pit, dragged screaming into the black sand. Evelyn's voice broke through the din. "It's working, Marcus, it's working!" He smiled faintly, though his lips were drenched in blood. "Keep them, sealed." The last thing he saw was Evelyn's face before the darkness took him. The beasts screamed one final time, then vanished. The pit went still, smooth, silent. The arena shuddered once, then lay quiet, as though nothing had ever stirred. When the dust settled, only 4 remained. Evelyn, Rima, Hassan, and Cole stood trembling in the silence, staring at Marcus's still body on the altar. The stairwell groaned. Light poured in. The stone entrance had returned, open again. They staggered upward, out of the cold, into the burning sun. The desert stretched before them as though nothing had changed. But their eyes told otherwise. They had seen the beasts of Babylon. They had seen their hunger, and they knew what it had taken to keep them sealed. As the wind swept over the dunes, Evelyn whispered, "What happens when the blood dries?" Hassan didn't answer. He only prayed louder. Cole lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Then God help us all." Behind them, far below the sand, the black pit stirred, waiting,